So we're very excited to be together this afternoon with Dan Rizzuto, the founder and CEO of Nia Therapeutics. And Dan, for me, when we talked, your story is one of friendship and partnership and mentorship and paths that went in one direction and another, and then came together to create something very special. So we're delighted to have you with us today. And let's hear a little bit about your story and your path and how you got to be the founder and CEO of Nia Therapeutics.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me on today, Joe. So this story goes back over 20 years. I did my graduate work at Brandeis University with Mike Kahana, who was a young faculty member at Brandeis in the neuroscience department. I was a young PhD student in the neuroscience department, and he is one of the world's experts in human memory. And together in Boston at that time, we got into this field of understanding the electrophysiological underpinnings of memory. We started working with patients who have implanted electrodes in their brain temporarily. They're undergoing neurological monitoring, and these patients are in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and they participate in our studies. They volunteer to do memory tasks, and it's a very unique opportunity to record from the human brain and understand the human memory system with very high resolution electrical recordings. And so Mike and I really, there was very few people doing this work at that time. So Mike Kahana and I really did a lot of the early work in this field together at Brandeis, understanding the neural signatures of human memory. It was very much from a basic research perspective. And I went on after completing my PhD and did postdoctoral work in brain-machine interfaces at Caltech, and then went into industry for many years, running clinical trials in various neuroscience indications. And Mike continued to investigate the human memory system. He eventually moved to the University of Pennsylvania, where he's now full professor in psychology and neuroscience at Penn. And in 2014, we had always stayed in touch over the years. And it was really an incredible time working together at Brandeis in the late 90s and early 2000s. And in 2014, Mike called me up. I was living in Seattle at the time, working for the Allen Institute for Brain Science. And he called me up and he said, Dan, I just got $24 million from the Department of Defense, DARPA, to undertake the project that we had always talked about, to use brain stimulation to modulate human memory. And he said, I want you to come to Philadelphia and run this project with me. And, it was a tough decision to pick up and move cross country and leave, incredible organization like the Allen Institute. But really the opportunity to work with Mike Kahana once again and to really build on my doctoral dissertation work that I did all those many years ago and build a technology for helping patients with memory disorders. That was an unparalleled opportunity. So I jumped at the chance, picked up, drove cross country and in 2014, and we started on this incredible adventure together once again to build upon that incredible adventure from the early 90s, late 90s at Brandeis.
Dan, I'm just sitting here amazed at the, what your reaction must have been in that moment to get that call. I mean, you said it was a tough decision, but I can imagine that the opportunity to fulfill a dream and to have the Defense Department fund that, what a tremendous thing.
Absolutely. It really was a dream to be able to build a technology from scratch using the techniques and the skills that I had developed going back to my graduate work and then in my postdoctoral work in brain-machine interfaces and then running clinical trials. It brought all of those experiences together into a single project. And so in 2014 at the University of Pennsylvania, we embarked on this multi-center project with 9 clinical centers around the country that enrolled neurosurgical patients. These are patients with epilepsy who are temporarily implanted with electrodes who participate in our memory tasks. And we've run since that time in 2014, we've run over 400 patients on our brain recording and stimulation studies at these 9 centers around the country. The leading academic medical centers from Columbia to NIH to Dartmouth and Mayo Clinic, Emory University, UT Southwestern, just a really incredible crew. And we've published now, dozens of papers on the neural signatures of memory, such a wealth of data that we've collected. And several papers that we've published show how you can use brain stimulation to improve human memory. And it really comes down to having a very targeted approach to delivering stimulation. It needs to be very specific in its timing, in that you can think of memory as being a distributed system in the brain. It's a network effect. It's not just in one place in the brain. It's really in multiple areas of the brain simultaneously that all need to work together seamlessly to make good memory. And it's very easy for that system to go awry, which is why you have in brain injury, one of the primary complaints of patients with brain injury is memory loss. You also have this in mild cognitive impairment and ultimately Alzheimer's disease. And together, these in the United States, memory loss due to brain injury, mild cognitive impairment, and Alzheimer's, the prevalence is over 7 million Americans are living with memory loss due to one of these disorders. That's close to 2% of the population. And that's just the clinically significant population. There's also, of course, as we age, the memory system doesn't work quite as well as it used to. So there's the subclinical, which is the healthy aging version of memory loss that all of us experience from time to time. And so the memory system really is distributed in the brain, and you can think of it like an orchestra. And brain stimulation is like being the conductor of that orchestra and understanding when it's in tune and working well and in time and working appropriately, and when the network goes out of tune and isn't firing together quite as well. And that's the time when you can deliver a very specific, tailored stimulation therapy and actually improve memory. That's what we've shown.
So Dan, all this work that you've done has led to the development of a device. It seems like this process has come a long way, and now you have a device for brain stimulation. I wonder if you can tell us about that and where you are in that process, what the next steps ahead are. This is really fascinating information, particularly as one of those who, from time to time, I find myself wondering where my memory has gone. So we're grateful for this work.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I like to say I'm developing this for me in the future as well. And yeah, based on the extraordinary success that we've had demonstrating proof of concept of being able to improve human memory using targeted, what's called closed loop neurostimulation. I spun out from the university in 2018, and we founded Nia Therapeutics at that time, me and Mike Kahana, and we're now developing the Nia Smart Neuromodulation System. So why don't I share my screen with you, and you can give the audience a little bit of an idea of what the Smart Neuromodulation System is like. So the SNS, as we like to call it, includes both implanted components and wearable components. You can think of it, it's very similar in form factor to a cochlear implant style device for treating hearing loss. And so it includes implanted components, depth leads in the brain that are used to sense and stimulate the brain, a cranial implant that has all of the electronics for that sensing and stimulation, and a wearable component, the earpiece, that has the battery that powers the whole system. And the earpiece really contains the smarts of the algorithm as well. That's where it has the processing, and it analyzes the patient's brain activity in real time, determines it's the conductor, right? That's continuously monitoring the performance of the memory network in the brain and delivering stimulation when needed to keep the patient in the zone of good memory performance. But the real smarts of our system is up in the cloud. And our big competitive advantage is our cloud-based artificial intelligence algorithms. And we have secure cloud connectivity. Security is very important for these types of devices to protect both patient data and neural data. And the AI algorithms are what personalize the therapy for each patient. So they learn the patient's brain activity related to memory performance. They determine which features, what are the neural signatures that predict good or bad memory, and they develop a tailored stimulation therapy that can keep each patient in the zone of good memory performance. And like I said, we already have an existing 400 patient data set that we developed at the University of Pennsylvania that really allows us, it provides what are called network effects, which means with every new patient who participates and gets therapy with our device and our algorithms get better because the data set gets larger. It's like Google. As they learn your search queries over time, they can actually predict what you're searching for. Our algorithms get better at predicting the patient's brain activity and being able to tune and that memory network and move patients into the zone of good memory performance. So this is the Nia Smart Neuromodulation System that we are developing.
Dan, it sounds to me from our earlier conversation that you've had some very positive feedback from NIH on your work. And I'm curious what the next steps are in terms of bringing this to market. What stands in front of you? I know you've got a lot behind you, and yet there are challenges to overcome moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, DARPA, of course, was key in providing the initial proof of concept for this device. And we've done that with our scientific and clinical publications. And then I spun out. Since that time, we've raised about $3.5 million from angel investors that are allowing us to do a lot of the initial work around product development and regulatory pathway definition. So we've met with the FDA a few times. We've now, a key piece of the story is that what we used at the University of Pennsylvania was a research prototype. But that research prototype is not suitable for commercialization. So now we need to develop a commercial version and implant a fully implantable version that we can take through the clinical trials process. So Nia is in the process of fundraising to finalize that commercial platform. And we've already, like I said, met with the FDA to define the pathway to our first clinical trial and ultimately to market. So we have a very clear plan now to finalize the device and bring it to the first clinical trial and ultimately to market. We estimate it's going to be about 2 years to bring this to the first clinical trial. And, you know, we're very excited. Of course, Mike Kahana is still doing the research at Penn, so we're continuing to publish on the basic mechanisms of action and improving the therapy with our research prototype. And yeah, it's an exciting time for Nia. We're firing on all cylinders, even in the midst of a pandemic. We're continuing to make excellent progress on the product and the regulatory path. So it's, yeah, really looking forward to where this goes.
Well, Dan, what a fantastic story. It's clear to us that we want to stay in touch with you and track your progress. And we look forward to getting together again soon. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thanks, Joe. It's a real pleasure. Appreciate the opportunity.